If you want to manifest the life that you would like, you have to ignore reality. I know that sounds controversial, or ignore reality, what does that mean? But what I'm basically saying is that what we think reality is not reality at all. It's a bunch of thought forms. Really, it comes down to a bunch of electrical activity and neurotransmitters in our brain, a bunch of arousal responses in our bodies, and hormonal responses in our bodies, and we call that our reality. These become thoughts and images and pictures that we think are reality, and it's really just living in patterns in the brain. And so we're walking around with these patterns, and we're actually in reality all the time, but we're really ignoring real reality all the time, and we're paying attention to what we think reality is. That's why I say ignore reality, because what we think reality is a bunch of thought forms. Example, how many times have you used the doorknob today? How many times has a doorknob been in your experience? Now, have you thought about a doorknob since I mentioned that? Meanwhile, it's everywhere, and you haven't really thought about it. I mean, some people think about it. They may be, afraid of germs, or maybe there's a hot doorknob that got burned on or something. But for the most part, doorknobs are everywhere. We ignore them. They're there. They're in our reality, but we don't call our reality a reality filled with doorknobs. So what we're really talking about when we talk about reality are nothing more than these patterns in the brain that we paid attention to in the past, that we now keep in the present and project onto the future. And they're just patterns. And there's basically three important patterns that it's running all day, every day, and we call that our reality. So our job is to realize that first, reality is in there, and then second, to change the pattern so we change our reality in here, and then the brain just notices something different out there. That's what one would call the law of attraction. You're just being attracted to things that are important in your mind, and your brain is scanning. And look at it this way. Like the doorknobs, there are sinks and faucets, and there are walls, and there are doors, and there are cars out in the street. There are things all over the place that we are ignoring. If we had to really pay attention to everything all at the same time, we'd go mad. So the brain has to start scanning its environment for the important patterns. And those important patterns we learned through emotional reactions to life that got stuck in our brain. And most of them, and body, most of them started before 12 years old, and the brain just keeps looking for these patterns. And there's basically three patterns that it's looking for. And these patterns are what we call our reality. That's why they keep repeating themselves, because they're emotionally charged with defense mechanisms, coping mechanisms, and projections of craving and hope. And so the first pattern to address would be a very pleasant pattern. And so this is when we notice something we like. Like my son loved Transformer cars when he was younger. And so every time he saw the Transformers, he just loved them, he liked the way they moved, and he just liked these transformer machines, and he just liked them, and he paid attention to them, he was drawn to them, and it became something that was familiar and pleasant. And when things are familiar and pleasant, the brain's job is to start wanting more of it and starting to create automatically more of it. It's kind of how neurofeedback works. The brain registers that you like a certain frequency in the brain, and it starts creating more of it as long as you like it through operant conditioning. And so that's how the first pattern works. It's just something we register as important, and we feel it and like it, and we just seem to be drawn to it. We look for it in the world, the brain scanning. As soon as we walk into a room, if that thing is present, those butterflies or unicorns, crystals, whatever it is that you are into, it, cars, as soon as you see it, your brain's going to go to it. And that's that pattern. It's not a lot of craving involved. It's just basically appreciation, fancy, passion even, and desire. It's like unadulterated desire. The second pattern, this is the important one. These are the patterns that are based on experiences that have never been resolved. What Freud called repetition compulsion, what Jung talked about, whatever's not looked at in the subconscious mind will create our reality, and we'll call it fate. It will determine our experiences. These are moments that never got resolved, so in an attempt to resolve them, the brain is looking for them, And while we're trying to fight that problem, we're trying to fix it or fight it, trying to get people not to lie to us or tell us the truth or try to get money. While we're trying to fight the pattern, the subconscious keeps attracting it. And so we may be good at manipulating our world for a while, but even if we get the world to look a certain way, we're in this feeling of anxiety because we're afraid it's going to change again. And so we never process the emotions around a negative experience. We never mastered a moment. We never got comfortable in dealing with this challenge, so it becomes an emotional charge. And then because we have this emotional charge, we're trying to escape or get away from. The brain is in also pattern number 3, which is looking for the solution to that emotional discomfort. And so what it's doing is it's looking for, I don't like this feeling I never processed about being broke or not having money. And it's either going to bring up feelings of not being physically safe, it's going to bring up feelings of not being important or approved of, and it's going to bring up feelings of being controlled. I can't do what I want, or someone's going to tell me to do what they want because I don't have enough money to say no. And so that pattern we're trying to escape creates fantasies and hopes and what the Buddhists call attachments to things, which is, I don't like this pattern of being broke, I want to win the lottery, or I want to become a billionaire. I don't like this pattern of not being wanted or welcomed, I want to be famous, I want to be significant. I don't like this pattern of being alone, I need someone to commit to me. And so we have these patterns that are created from 2 and 3, what the Buddhists call aversions and attachments. I'm not liking this, and I think only that can get rid of this. And when we're in this loop, it creates this perpetual loop. It's like a 3-stage loop. The first is hope. I think this is going to happen. That person likes me. I'm going to get that job. I might get that reward. I might get that money. I might not have to do that for a living anymore. And I may not be alone. This person likes me. All right. So we have hope. And that's just excitement and dopamine. Getting excited about some reward. Right? And that's creating this hope. But then when we get the thing, if we're in the pattern number 2, while we're getting number 3, then 2 is worried about it happening again, pattern number 2. So even though we have it, we're now terrified of losing it. So now that I have that person, the hope starts turning into fear, because what if I don't have this dopamine anymore and the other emotion I never dealt with in number 2 comes to the surface because they abandoned me, or I have to do what I don't want to do, I'm not going to be physically safe anymore. Now I have anxiety of losing what I have. Then I may unconsciously sabotage the situation in order to feel the emotions I've been suppressing in number 2, and now I'm back to the emotions of number 2, looking for a way out by getting more hope, getting what I want, feeling anxious, or always trying to get what I want, and I never get there. And so the solution is to dissolve 2, to integrate 2, to master 2, to release the emotions around 2, and rather than reaching for 3, you internalize the thing you want as if it's happening now. Now this creates number 1 again, which is this feeling of having what you want, liking it, and your body wanting more of it. And that's when it becomes unadulterated desire. That's when we're in this place of what people call the law of attraction, or just positive excitement. And we just know things are working out and challenges come and go, but it's not angst driven. It's not, we don't get depressed if it doesn't happen. Think about like wanting to go camping or something with your friends, and you think it'd be a great idea. If it's raining, you might be bummed, but you don't fall apart. You're not terrified of it not happening. You're just excited about the possibility of it happening because you kind of feel it inside, so you want it outside. And these are the patterns that we want to work on that will help us to have a more of a flow life. The problem here with these patterns is oftentimes if someone's really mastered the industry versus inferiority stage of development, where they really feel that they can accomplish any goal they want, if their goal is driven from this pattern number 2, they may actually get what they're looking for in 3. But again, they're going to get it, and they're going to be constantly fighting to hold on to it. It's going to create a lot of extraneous and superfluous stress hormones that are just not needed, because these stress hormones are just about learning that life can be impermanent, life can be scary, life can be Life can suck sometimes, and those emotions have to pass through. We don't hold those emotions. We pass through. Emotions pass through. We either learn to accept life, relax, and then try to change it, going back to number one, or we accept that we can't change it, and then we think about what we would like, again, number one, and it starts building motivation to get the thing that we would like, so it becomes goal-oriented rather than a need to change our state. Basically, goal-oriented rather than self-regulation oriented. And that's what we're essentially doing, trying to use the external world that's always fluctuating and is impermanent and moving to regulate our nervous system, to give us a good, better mood, lower mood, higher mood. And this is where we get in trouble, because since the world's always moving, if our nervous system is being affected by the external world, then things look good, we're excited, might be bad, we're anxious, things are bad, we get depressed, and it just keeps going. And so we want to reverse that process. Psychologists call this the locus of control, trying to control your external environment rather than an internal locus of control, which is you're taking care of everything you can deal with, and that's your mood, your state, the images you hold, your intention, and how you feel about things. Well, if you take care of that, 75% of your life is taken care of. The rest is just basically taking action and moving towards those goals. And that becomes a challenge, and you're going back to that feeling of when you learn to walk or talk. You had an image, you had it in your head, you're actually experiencing it like mirror cells in your brain, as if you're actually saying the words or standing and walking. And your body just hasn't caught up to this experience, so you have a lot of this feedback until it catches up. And so you're always feeling it inside, loving it inside, and you feel a desire to want it outside. In the other recordings, we'll talk about how to master a moment, different tricks to mastering that moment, to overcoming a challenge, and understanding how these moments get stuck, why they get stuck, and how to reverse them. So you go back to number one, a perpetual state of receiving and positive expectancy. That's phase number one, or state number one. Hope that helps. I'm Joe Tabb with the Tabb Technique. I'll see you soon.